Nye.
Welcome to this deep dive. So, I want you to start today by just imagining a scenario with me.
Okay, I'm ready.
Picture a city, right? A place so unimaginably wealthy and honestly just so completely convinced of its own invincibility.
Like a modern billionaire enclave or something?
Exactly. Like a massive, ultra-wealthy tech hub that thinks it has absolutely everything figured out.
Right.
But then a devastating earthquake hits and literally levels it to the ground.
Right.
Just destroys the whole place.
Wow.
But here's the crazy part. When the government swoops in to offer, disaster relief funds, the citizens flat out reject it. They literally wave off the empire and say, keep your money, we'll just rebuild it ourselves with our own cash.
I mean, that really paints such a vivid picture, doesn't it? Just absolute, unshakable self-reliance.
Yeah, completely.
Because to turn down imperial money in the ancient world, I mean, that required a level of civic pride that honestly bordered on, well, profound arrogance.
Oh, without a doubt. And, we aren't talking about some modern tech hub here at all.
Yeah.
We are actually talking about the ancient city of Laodicea.
Right, Laodicea.
Yeah. Today, we are taking a really close look at a fascinating stack of sources you sent over, specifically regarding Revelation chapter 3, verses 14 through 22.
Which is the famous letter to the church in Laodicea.
Exactly. And our mission today is to unpack, exactly why this specific congregation received what is universally considered the seventh, the final, and honestly, the most brutal letter recorded in the entire book of Revelation.
Yeah, the severity of this particular letter is just striking. I mean, it really is.
It doesn't hold back at all.
Not even a little. But
Yeah.
what makes the documents you provided so compelling to me is how they reveal the actual mechanics of the critique.
What do you mean by mechanics?
Well, the author of this letter doesn't just deliver like a generic list of spiritual grievances, The text actually masterfully weaponizes the city's own geography, its economic engine, and that deeply ingrained self-sufficiency we talked about just to expose this fatal spiritual bankruptcy.
I love that phrase, weaponizing the geography, because to understand the reality check this church is about to receive, we really have to look at the economic machinery of the city they lived in.
We do, because Laodicea wasn't just doing well, it was basically the financial center of its world.
Right, so let's feed into the history a bit.
Yeah, the history here is crucial. So Laodicea was founded in the mid-3rd century BC by Antiochus II. He actually named it after his wife, Laodice.
Oh, okay. Nice anniversary gift, I guess.
Right. Here's a city. It was located about 40 miles southeast of Philadelphia, but its real superpower was, like I said, the geography.
Because it was a crossroads, right?
Exactly. It sat right at the juncture of two major Roman roads in the Lycus River Valley. And, in the ancient world, controlling the crossroads meant controlling the wealth.
So whoever controlled the traffic controls the commerce.
Pretty much, yeah.
But how did that translate into the kind of wealth where you can literally just brush off imperial disaster relief from Rome?
Well, it translated into banking, primarily.
Of course. Always banking.
Always banking. Under Roman rule, Laodicea became this massive commercial hub. Because think about it, traveling with physical gold or silver across the empire was incredibly dangerous.
Oh, because of bandits on the roads?
Exactly. Bandits were a huge problem. So the Roman elite used this really complex system of credit instead.
Wait, I always forget that the ancient Romans had credit systems, like letters of credit.
Yeah, exactly. And Laodicea was so secure and so cash-rich that Cicero, the famous Roman statesman and orator, he actually traveled there specifically to cash his letters of credit.
Wow, Cicero himself.
Yeah. It functioned essentially as the Wall Street of Asia Minor.
Okay, so they have infinite banking gold, but looking at the notes you provided,
yeah,
they highlight two other major industries that made them famous across the whole Greco-Roman Empire.
Right.
First, they apparently cornered the high-end textile market.
They absolutely did. So the Lycus Valley was home to this genetically distinct breed of sheep.
Okay.
And these sheep produced this highly prized, incredibly soft, raven black wool.
Raven black wool. That sounds very chic.
Oh, it was. They wove this into a specific kind of luxury tunic called a trimita. And wearing this black wool was, it was the ultimate status symbol.
So it was like the ancient equivalent of wearing a bespoke designer label.
Exactly, like walking around in Gucci or something today. Everyone who was anyone wanted Laodicean black wool.
So we have Wall Street and high fashion. What was the third pillar?
The third pillar was their renowned medical school. They developed something the sources call Phrygian powder.
Phrygian powder. What did that do?
It was essentially their blockbuster pharmaceutical patent. The medical school took these specific local minerals, dried them out, and compressed them into tablets.
Okay, like a pill.
Sort of, but when you crushed it and mixed it with water, it created an eye salve. And this salve supposedly cured various visual ailments.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they exported the salve all across the empire. Now, historically, its actual medical efficacy is highly debatable.
Right. It was probably just mud and minerals.
Probably. But commercially, it was a massive success. I mean, it brought unimaginable wealth into the city.
Okay, so just to recap, we have the big three. We have banking gold, luxury black fashion, and a total monopoly on eye medicine.
The perfect trio for civic arrogance.
Seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And that brings us right back to the earthquake we mentioned at the start. This was in 60 AD, right?
Yes, 60 AD. The Roman historian Tacitus actually recorded this exact event.
Right. So the city is destroyed. Emperor Nero swoops in. He offers financial assistance to rebuild. And Laodicea essentially just says, no thanks, we don't need you.
Which just perfectly encapsulates the mindset of the people living there. But, you know, beneath all that gold and the wool and the medicine, Laodicea had one glaring, inescapable infrastructure problem.
Wait, I need to stop you there. Because if they had infinite banking gold and they were living in the Roman Empire,
yeah,
I mean, that's a civilization literally famous for its plumbing and aqueducts.
Yeah.
So how could they have an infrastructure problem? Why wouldn't they just, engineer their way out of it with all that money?
Well, because you can't engineer your way out of bad geography if there's no local source to tap into in the first place.
No water source.
Exactly. Laodicea did not have its own immediate fresh water supply. They had to pipe their water in through miles and miles of underground limestone aqueducts.
Okay, but miles of aqueducts isn't that unusual for Rome, is it?
No, but you have to compare it to their neighbors. The neighboring cities had it so much better. Like, to the north, you had Hierapolis.
Okay.
And Hierapolis was famous for its boiling hot, mineral-rich healing springs. People traveled there for therapy.
Nice.
Then to the east, you had Colossae. And Colossae sat near the mountains, so they received this freezing cold, refreshing snowmelt.
Oh, man. So they're sandwiched between a natural hot tub and a glacial spring. But they get neither.
They get neither. Because by the time water from any external source traveled through those miles of sun-baked limestone pipes to actually reach Laodicea, it was tepid.
Oh.
It was literally lukewarm. And even worse, because of the limestone, the water was heavily saturated with calcium carbonate.
Oh, so it tasted terrible, too.
Terrible. If you drank it straight out of the aqueduct, the mineral content and that gross lukewarm temperature would literally induce vomiting.
That is fascinating.
Yeah.
It's like owning a $50 million mega mansion.
Right.
You've got a fleet of sports cars in the driveway, bespoke designer clothes in the closet. But every time you turn on the kitchen tap, the water smells like sulfur and makes you gag.
That is the exact reality they lived with. It was a daily physical reality. And the author of Revelation takes this specific nauseating plumbing situation and uses it as a psychological mirror for the local congregation.
Because the church in Laodicea had caught the same disease as their city.
Exactly. They had gone completely apostate.
And the research notes are very specific about the nature of this apostasy, too. Like, they hadn't just gotten lazy with their faith. They had actively embraced a theological movement called Gnosticism.
Yes. Gnosticism was a huge threat to the early church.
But, I mean, why would a group of wealthy, successful bankers and merchants fall for what sounds like a fringe cult?
To understand that, you really have to look at the psychology of the ultra-wealthy in that era.
Okay.
The term Gnosticism comes from the Greek word gnosis, which means knowledge. And this movement taught that the material world was inherently corrupt, but the spiritual realm was pure.
Standard philosophical stuff for the time, right?
Right, but here's the hook. They claimed that salvation didn't come through simple faith or grace, which, anyone could have.
Even poor people.
Exactly, even the poor. Instead, the Gnostics claimed salvation came through elite, secret, elevated knowledge.
Ah, I see. So it functioned like an exclusive spiritual country club.
Yes, that's exactly it.
If you are already a Laodicean elite and you're used to looking down on everyone else financially, you probably want a religion that lets you look down on them intellectually, too.
That is the exact psychological hook. Gnosticism allowed them to feel spiritually superior to the masses. And the core of this Gnostic heresy in Laodicea specifically targeted the identity of Jesus Christ.
How so?
Well, they taught that Christ was not the supreme God. They argued he was merely an emanation.
An emanation, like a projection.
Basically a created being.
Yeah.
They believed he was a creation who had reached a really high level of enlightenment, but at the end of the day, still just a creation.
Wow. So they stripped him of his deity just to fit their own complex philosophical framework.
They did. And this is where the text of Revelation 3 gets so incredibly brilliant. Because when Christ addresses this church, he doesn't just use, like, a generic greeting.
Right, he customizes it.
He does. He deliberately shifts his identity to completely dismantle their Gnostic theology in his very first breath.
Okay, let's look at that. Because in the previous letters to the other churches, he uses titles like, he who is holy, who is true, who has the key of David.
Exactly.
But for Laodicea, he introduces himself as the Amen, the faithful and true witness, the beginning of the creation of God.
Right, and those titles are so specific to their heresy.
Well, I want to break down these titles, starting with the Amen, because, I mean, in a modern context, I just say Amen when I want the prayer to end so we can finally start eating dinner.
Right, like wrap it up.
Yeah, it just means sounds good or I agree.
In our modern vernacular, sure. But amen is actually a transliteration of a Hebrew word that fundamentally means absolute truth or unshakable certainty.
Okay.
And what's vital for you to grasp here is that as a title in Jewish theology, it is reserved exclusively for God.
Really? Yes, for God.
Yes. The text is specifically referencing Isaiah 65.1 which speaks of the God of Amen, or the God of truth.
Oh, wow. So by taking the title, the Amen, Christ is unequivocally claiming ultimate deity.
Exactly. He is stating he is the absolute truth, which stands in direct, aggressive opposition to their supposed secret knowledge.
That's a huge claim. But then he follows it up by calling himself the beginning of the creation of God.
And this is where people get tripped up.
I can see why, looking at the English translation, I can see exactly why the Laodiceans might have felt justified. Like, if I read beginning of the creation, my mind automatically assumes he was the first thing off the assembly line.
Right.
Which is exactly what the Gnostics were arguing in the first place.
And that's why the English translation creates a significant hurdle here, because the word beginning implies a chronological start. But we really have to look at the original Greek word used in the manuscript.
Which is what?
The word is
arche, like archetype or architecture or archaic.
Exactly. When you look at how arche was used in ancient Greek, it rarely meant just the first in a sequence of time. It meant the chief, the ruler, the magistrate, or the origin source.
Oh, okay. So like an architect is the chief builder.
Right. Christ is not saying he was the first thing created by God. He is stating categorically that he is the architect, the source, and the supreme ruler over all creation.
Man, so the Gnostics are sitting around in their bespoke black wool tunics, right?
Yeah.
Just discussing their elite philosophy that Jesus was just a really high-level creation.
Right. Feeling very smart.
And by using the word arche, Christ basically steps in and says, I am the source code of the universe. I'm not just a program running on the system. I wrote the operating system. I rule the hardware.
I love that analogy. He completely reestablishes his absolute authority over their intellectual pride. And once he has shattered that theological foundation, he immediately pivots.
To attack their hypocrisy.
Yes. He uses the city's own water supply to deliver literally the most famous critique in the entire book.
Okay, yes, this is the verse everyone knows. I know your deeds, that you are neither cold nor hot. So because you are lukewarm and neither hot nor cold, I will spit you out of my mouth.
Now, put yourself in the shoes of a Laodicean reading that for the first time. They dealt with that terrible water every single day of their lives.
Right.
So they knew immediately that the metaphor isn't just about enthusiasm, it's about utility.
Wait, can you expand on the utility aspects? Because honestly, I've always heard this taught as hot means you really love God, cold means you totally hate him, and lukewarm means you just don't care either way.
Yeah, that's incredibly common. But that interpretation totally misses the geographical brilliance of the text. Think back to their neighbors we just talked about.
Hierapolis and Colossae.
Right. Hierapolis had hot water. And hot water is incredibly useful. It cleanses wounds, it relaxes muscles, it provides healing therapy.
Oh, I see where you're going.
And Colossae had cold water. Cold water is also incredibly useful. It refreshes a weary traveler, it quenches your thirst, it revives you when you're exhausted.
But lukewarm, mineral-heavy calcium water does neither of those things.
It is entirely useless, it doesn't heal, and it certainly doesn't refresh. It just literally makes you sick to your stomach.
Wow. So the text is saying the church in Laodicea was spiritually useless.
Exactly. They weren't providing the healing truth of Christ, like hot water, nor were they providing refreshing spiritual relief to the weary, like cold water. They were just sitting in the middle, playing both sides, and it was nauseating to God.
And the really tragic part is they had absolutely no idea. I mean, the sources note how the church responded to their own reflection, and they actually claimed, I am rich and have become wealthy and have need of nothing.
They really believed that.
Because Laodicea was this wealthy banking center, the people in the congregation had clearly internalized this really false equation. Like, they thought massive material wealth plus a few charitable deeds equals perfect spiritual health.
Yeah, they looked at their civic ledgers, saw these massive financial surpluses, and just assumed their spiritual ledgers matched perfectly.
But the text counters that delusion completely, doesn't it? Christ tells them that despite all their bank accounts, they're actually wretched, miserable, poor, blind, and naked.
It's a total inversion of their reality.
It really is. But what I find so fascinating here is that the letter doesn't just condemn them and walk away. It actually offers a remedy.
And it's a very specific remedy.
Yeah, this three-part remedy is just a surgically precise mockery of their three biggest industries.
The irony is so sharp, and it is entirely intentional. Rather than simply destroying these hypocrites, Christ offers them an exchange. First, he advises them to buy from him gold refined by fire so that you may become rich.
Which is incredible because they had literal vaults of Cicero-approved banking gold.
Endless gold.
But the text suggests their vaults were totally useless. It's offering them true spiritual wealth and said-like, a currency that actually survives the fire of judgment.
Exactly. Then second, he offers them white garments so that you may clothe yourself and that the shame of your nakedness will not be revealed.
Oh, man. Which is a direct hit on the Lycus Valley Black Wall.
Right.
They walked around wrapped in this expensive dark fleece, feeling like they were the absolute elites of the empire. But the letter is telling them that spiritually, they're standing completely exposed and naked.
And the only thing that can cover that shame are his pure white garments, which symbolize his righteousness.
And then we reach the third offer, which obviously targets their medical school.
Yes. He tells them to get eye salve to anoint your eyes so that you may see.
That one is just devastating. The city, famous for exporting blindness cures across the entire Roman Empire, is the one the text calls completely blind.
The irony is just staggering.
It really is. I mean, their Gnostic secret knowledge made them feel so intellectually enlightened, like they saw the hidden truths of the universe, while all the common people were just stumbling around in the dark.
Yet their supposed enlightenment had left them entirely blind to the reality of who God actually was. They needed real spiritual eye salve, which is true revelation, to even see their own wretched condition.
So their banking gold is called out. Their luxury black wool is called out. Their blockbuster eye salve is called out. Every single pillar of their civic pride is dismantled piece by piece.
Completely torn down.
Honestly, you would assume a takedown, this personalized, this systematic, would just end with fire and brimstone. Like, you're done.
You would. But the pivot at the very end of the letter is what makes it so profound. It shifts from this absolute condemnation to an image that is, it's simultaneously horrifying and incredibly hopeful.
What's the image?
The text says, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock."
Oh, yeah. We see paintings of that all the time. But when you place it in the context of this specific apostate church, the implication of where he is actually standing is kind of chilling.
It really is. He is standing outside the door.
Outside.
The creator of the universe, the true arche, is locked outside of his own church. The implication is that the apostasy is so total that, the Gnostic heresy so entrenched and the lukewarm hypocrisy so complete that there are literally no true believers left inside.
Wow. They literally pushed him out with their self-sufficiency.
Exactly.
They didn't need him. They had their own earthquake relief funds, their own designer clothes, their own elite secret theology.
But despite all of that rejection, he is still knocking.
That's the hopeful part.
Yeah. He issues one final invitation. The text reads, "If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come into him and will dine with him and he with me." And the language here is deeply significant.
How so?
Well, the Greek word used for this specific meal is deipnio.
Deipnio. I don't know that term. What does that signify in the ancient world?
Deipnio refers specifically to the evening meal.
Okay.
It is the main final meal of the day. So the imagery the text is invoking is that the sun is setting. The day is ending, the night of judgment is about to fall, and this knock at the door is the absolute final opportunity before darkness overtakes the city.
Oh, wow.
It's an urgent, intimate plea to let the truth in before it is literally too late.
And the promise attached to that final meal is just staggering. It says, "He who overcomes, I will grant to him to sit down with me on my throne, as I also overcame and sat down with my Father on his throne."
And to overcome in this textual context really means rejecting the deceptions of their culture.
Right, rejecting the whole Laodicean mindset.
Exactly. It means abandoning the false security of that wealth, rejecting the elitist trap of Gnostic secret knowledge, and returning to the true source.
The true arche.
Yes. The text is claiming that the reward for the one who actually opens that door isn't just, surviving the judgment. It is eternal fellowship and the right to reign alongside the divine.
It is such an incredible paradox. I mean, the congregation that received the absolute worst diagnostic report, literally the only church so useless they induced nausea, is simultaneously offered the most intimate invitation of all of them.
A final evening meal and a seat on the throne.
Yeah. It perfectly encapsulates the dual nature of the text, doesn't it? Like severe truth coupled with an entirely open invitation.
It does. And if we connect this to you, the listener, we really have to consider why these ancient sources even matter today.
Right. Why are we talking about this now?
Because the documents you provided suggest that this letter isn't just like a historical footnote about a ruined Roman city. It is designed as a psychological mirror for anyone reading it.
A mirror for our own self-sufficiency.
Exactly. It challenges the reader to examine where they place their ultimate trust. It asks us to look past our modern equivalents of, banking gold and designer wool and actually confront the reality of our inner condition.
Well, we've covered a tremendous amount of ground today. We saw how Laodicea's strategic location created this unimaginable wealth, and how their famous medical eye salve and black wool became these symbols of extreme civic pride.
Which led to their arrogance.
Right. And we explored how the church fell into the trap of Gnosticism, basically treating theology like an exclusive club for the intellectual elite.
And we saw how the text dismantled that elite theology by revealing the true arche, the supreme architect and ruler of creation, and then, brilliantly, turned their lukewarm aqueducts into a permanent metaphor for spiritual hypocrisy.
Yet, despite being called wretched, miserable, poor, blind, and naked, the truth remained outside their locked door, just knocking as the sun went down.
Still offering that deipneo, that final evening meal, to anyone willing to actually overcome their own pride.
It is a lot to process, and the letter ends with a phrase that demands the reader's attention. "He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches."
Which means the text assumes the warning is going to echo forward through time.
Exactly. So it leaves you with a critical challenge to ponder as you go about your day. If this ancient diagnostic report is meant for all of us, what are the lukewarm aqueducts flowing into our modern lives?
That's the real question.
The text asks us to consider. Are we right now mistaking our financial independence, our career status, and our access to infinite internet information for actual deep well-being? Are we sitting comfortably in the dark, admiring our own modern secret knowledge, while the truth is standing outside a locked door, knocking?
Nye.